So you want to learn how to make real boom-bap beats. The kind that knock like Havoc from Mobb Deep, groove like Ninth Wonder, and hit the soul like DJ Premier. But no matter what you try, it just doesn't have that raw, authentic feel. With all this modern tech, it's hard to know exactly what the OGs did, but today I'm gonna break it all down for you. I'm Jay Cactus, a full-time producer who actually started out making boom-bap beats, and in this video, I'm gonna show you the real techniques that help build some of the best years of hip-hop, such as the 90s and early 2000s. And I'll show you how to apply them to modern production so you can make your own fire boom-bap beats. So let's get straight into it. Alright, so back in the day, producers relied heavily on samples for everything. They'd take a drum break from one record and either loop it or chop it up. They'd take something melodic from either the same sample or another one. And they'd even sample a bass line or just take a single note and then create their own pattern. So step one is finding the right drum break. And most producers use hardware samplers like the MPC 2000 XL and they'd record directly from vinyl. I don't have an old MPC or a vinyl player and I'm guessing you don't either. So I'll show you the same process using an MP3 sample I found on YouTube. Remember, back in the day, people didn't really have drum kits like that, so they'd go through vinyl records and then just find parts where the drum break was playing by itself. For example, I found this one. You can still hear the vinyl texture in it. I think this loops fire. And all I'm going to do first is just find the BPM. MPCs didn't have auto detect, so they'd have a process like this. If we right click on the BPM and select tap, we can tap along to it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. So I'm counting this at 90 BPM, which is perfect for boom bap, so I might not even change it. Let's just take the beginning, so we don't need this part, or bring this back. And we can see even just by looking at the transients, that's lining up. We'll turn the metronome on. If it's not lining up, you could have just counted it a little bit off so we can just change the BPM. See, 89 is not right, 91 is not right. I'm looking at where these transients line up. If you hold Shift, Alt, and use the mouse wheel, you can just bring that perfectly on grid then. Just remember, breaks might not be lined up perfectly because they were recorded live, and that's what's going to give you that organic vibe, so just run with it. So from here, you could either keep the loop or you could chop up the loop, which is what a lot of producers were also doing. So now that I've got this loop synced, I'm just going to right click here and select Consolidate Tracks. Time selection. Now I've got the loop as its own file and I don't have that space at the beginning. From here we'll double click, we'll right click and select Open in Fruity Slicer. We'll go to the slice tool, select beat, and now we can actually rearrange the pattern. I'm using a MIDI keyboard right now, so if I press keys, you can see it's playing these chops. If you have a drum pad, you could assign it to that, or if you don't have anything, just go to the piano roll and you can arrange the chops this way. But I'm going to record something in. Alright, so I've just quantized that. And you can see the changes I made. So I wanted to add this chop here to act as a ghost kick. So it's just going to be a softer kick before the main one. And you can see I've even brought the velocity down. And then at the end of every 2 bar, I just added this softer snare right before the kick. So now we've got a more consistent snare throughout. But producers didn't stop there because a lot of the drum breaks in vinyl records didn't really hit too hard or they lacked a lot of low end. So what people would do is actually layer the drum breaks with different samples. And those samples would either be from previous records that they sampled, they might have just saved the one shots, or they might have used some of the ones that were built into drum machines. And this is where we can add a bit of modern production because we've got the natural groove of the drum break, but now we can layer some of those drums with some of our own samples. For example, let's go to the Crate collection and then the Crate Breaks drum kit. There's loads of breaks in here you can start with that have all been recorded live, and same with the snares, they're all taken from live drum sets. Maybe we could start with a kick. We'll just call this drum chop and we'll send it to a mixer, pull up an EQ and take a look. You can see we're actually getting a nice bit of low end from it, but I want more punch. I'm gonna add this one of my favorite kicks. Now if we just listen closely to the break, we can copy the kick pattern. And with these ones we could turn the velocity down. Press Shift and D, will make it a bit smaller. And then if we hold Alt and left click, we can just bring them off grid. So this is just a break. Then this is with my kick layered. In here we got way more punch. Let's do the same with the snare. Yeah, it sounds hard. Let's add the extra one here. And again, to keep it organic, you might want to move some of them a bit off grid. You just need to listen to the break and see where it fits. Let's copy that. So this is how producers made it more unique. They take the drum break, but then layer it with some other samples just to get interesting textures. And then for the hi-hats, same thing again, man. They'd either keep the original ones from the drum break, they'd use drum machines such as the TR-808, or they'd use a combination of everything, or even just sample hats from a different sample and then chop those up to fit the groove. I like the ones in the break, but maybe we could emphasize some. Let's try this one. So I'm just going to leave that natural. We'll copy this. I recorded the hats so they wouldn't be quantized. If you're making a trap beat, you might have everything perfectly hitting on grid, but when we're trying to capture that authentic boom-bap vibe, think about how a real drummer would play. They're not going to be hitting every note perfectly on grid, so it doesn't make sense to do that with your hats either. So if you look at the velocity, it's natural, and if you look at the position, it's natural. One other thing the MPC had was the option to add swing, or we could do that in FL as well. So in the channel rack, I'm just going to increase the swing. Could try by like 20 to 30% maybe. But if you don't want it to affect the original drum loop, then you could render it first. Yo, real quick, I just opened up the waitlist for the drill production course 2.0. And if you're serious about making drill beats, you'll want to get in on this. I first launched the course back in 2022 and it was a huge success. Hundreds of producers leveled up with it. But drill's evolved so much since then. Now we've got subgenres like sexy drill, hood trap, Jersey drill, and Afro drill. So I've added 4 brand new modules covering everything you need to stay ahead. Inside you'll learn modern sound selection, melody creation, drum sequencing, mixing, arrangement, marketing, and so much more, all in a step-by-step process that's easy to follow, whether you're a beginner or you're already making beats. Look, I've almost dropped 500 free YouTube videos, but those videos always have to be condensed to meet the YouTube algorithm. It could take days to find the exact tricks you need. That's why this course brings everything together in one place with over 15 hours of in-depth content, so you can quickly find what you need and level up fast, whether it's a specific style of drill, networking with artists, or even marketing your beats. And to make it even crazier, I'm throwing in hundreds of dollars worth of modern kits, exclusive tutorials, FL Studio project files, direct feedback from me, and way more. And if you join the waitlist, you'll get a huge discount, so don't miss out. Just click the link in the description to join now, and let's get back into the video. Alright, so when producers had the drum groove locked in, it made flipping samples way easier. And that's kind of backwards compared to how most modern producers work, including myself, because I usually start with the melody and then add drums to it. But with Boom-Bap, it just feels more natural starting with the drum break. So this is a sample I found that I'm going to be flipping. I'll just skim through it. I think I want to mess with this part here. So same process. I like to just grab the starting point, which is going to be here, where the bass comes in. But this sample's got a weird time signature. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3. Like it starts again here. But it's cool because we're going to chop it anyway. So I've dragged this into Serato sample. And if you look here, I just found the starting point. And I just click set slicer. And you can see it's created these chops. So now even though the time signature of this sample is different, the way I chop it is going to match my drum break. So all I do from here is just listen to the break and see what chop comes to me. That would sound hard. Let's record that in. We'll pitch it up as well though. Yeah, here we go. So I just quantized the chops and got them all at the same velocity. This chop sounded hard. And I think that will sound sick in one part, but if it plays all the way through, it will get too repetitive. So I'm going to figure out another chop. Could even repeat that and then change this one. And then let's switch it up here. So I really like this way of chopping. You don't have to use Serato. I thought I'd just switch it up. You can use Fruity Slicer, Slice X, or even FPC. So if you're using FPC, what you could do is open the sample in Edison, and then you could start taking micro chops, which was another common technique with the MPC. For example, we might like this chop here. You could highlight it, click this, and drag it over to the pad. And now you've got your chops ready to flip. Keep following that process for other moments. And then once you fill out the pads, you can use your MIDI controller to create chops. All right, the third step is the bass line. And most boom-bap producers did this in a few ways. They'd either keep the bass from the original sample, they'd take a bass line from a different sample, or they'd find a single note they could chop and then create their own pattern. Let's have a listen. So the bass in this sample isn't really strong. So I'm thinking we should add our own. So these are the chops. Let's send those both to a mixer. And then we'll just make a low cut up to about 150. So now we can't really hear a bass line, so we've got room to add our own. So if I go to my crate breaks kit, we'll go to bass. We'll just find something like this. We'll open it up and then adjust this, and then it's only going to play for as long as we hold it. Let's just think of a pattern. So we're working in C sharp. So if we just highlight the scale, it's going to make it easier. So that would be a simple one. Have one more note at the end, and then this part of the sample changes. Maybe that one. And then what we could also do is layer that with a sub. You can hear they're just clashing like crazy. So what we could do is send them to different mixers. On the upright bass, we'll take out the sub. And then on the 808, we'll do the opposite. We'll cut this down to 100. Let's hear how this sounds together. So let's see what sounds better. This is with just the upright bass. And then this is with them both. I might prefer the first one, you know. Yeah, let's scrap the 808. It's just an option if you want more sub. Another option you could use is a bass guitar. I kind of like that pattern. I'll save it and then we might use a mix when we arrange it. Let's turn that sample up. Then I think in one part, let's just build on this melody a bit. So I'm going to pull up Triton. Just to get a different vibe going, let's add a lead. Yeah, that lead sounded crazy, but I'm only going to bring that in some parts. All right, only other thing I'm hearing is just some plucks. Just something like that. I won't record this one in so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just thinking in one part, it might sound good like this. So all I'm going to do is just skip a note in the scale, skip another one. And to quickly make that short, just make sure this is set to half step and then press Shift and D. And then we could just manually move some so it's a bit more natural. And then Alt and R to randomize velocity. Let's do 3. So let's copy this. Let's pitch it up an octave. I just wanted to add to the melody so it's not so repetitive. And I'm just trying to use sounds that were common for early boom-bap producers. So the Triton was definitely a common keyboard a lot of producers had. I might add one more thing, and it's just going to be one string note. I think just that, you know. Alright, so once you've got the drums and the melody locked in, the next thing you want to think about is the mixing and added some character. So this is going to be the final tweaks. Since I've already sampled something that came from vinyl, I've already got that texture, but if you were creating your own from scratch, you could add something like RC20. I like to use the vinyl 3 preset, and then I just adjust the noise. And then for the drums, you could use Decimort 2, and they actually have an MPC preset to give you that grit. You might just need to adjust the preamp. So this is before. After. For this beat, I want to keep it simple because the OG producers didn't really add too much to the beats. All I'm going to think about is leveling, whether I need to add reverb or delay to anything, and then maybe a light bit of compression. So let's just have a listen. First, I need to link everything to a mixer. And let's hear the drums by themselves. So with the drums I added, it's sounding a bit dry, so I'm going to send them to a drum bus. I'm going to add that MPC preset. I'm going to leave the kick out of it though. And I'm just going to add a little bit of plate reverb. The mix at like 5%. I'll bring the low cut up too. On the sample, I'm going to add a compressor, and producers didn't always use this, but if they did add compression, at one point all they had was hardware plugins, so this was a popular one. But the MPC itself glued everything together, so I don't need to go overboard. I'm just going to bring the attack up. I'm just looking for a few dB reduction. Keeping that there. And then on the drum loop, I'm going to add the SSLG. We've got the attack on 10, release at 1, ratio on 4. Just a few dB reduction as well. This is before. And then with. Okay, I'm also going to sidechain the kick to the bass. And I'm going to use Soothe for this. Let's activate sidechain. Turn it on here as well. Bring the depth up. It just cleans it up so much, but it does it in a dynamic way, so it's not cutting all of the bass out. Like this is before. You can hear that distortion. And then with it on. Crazy. The master, I just like to use the soft clipper because I want that punch. But honestly, because of the MPC's bitrate and its own compression, producers weren't going crazy with the extra tools. It would happen more if an artist recorded over it and then it went to an engineer, but for the most part, producers would just run with what the MPC sounded like. Alright, so let's talk about the final step, the arrangement. There aren't any strict rules, but a lot of boom-bap beats followed a similar structure, and I'll break it down for you. So I'm going to go ahead and split this. I'll just bring it back out. So you'd usually start with an intro, anywhere from 4 bars up to 16, and then you'd either have an 8-bar hook or a 16-bar verse, and you just repeat the hook and verse for either 2 to 3 verses. Then to keep things interesting, you could add effects like filtering, or you could make little cuts in the drums and rearrange certain parts. So let's just see what sounds good. I'm going to copy this out a few times. Let's just start with a sample. Let's make this unique because I want to actually take the original sample. And then let's just do that at the end. Also, if you're getting some clicks in the chops, then just bring up the attack and the decay. All right, so I'll have this 8-bar intro, and then I think I want to drop straight into the verse. So I'm actually going to restructure this. Let's move this out. This is actually the verse, so let's take that. I'm going to get rid of the strings. We'll bring the plucks over here, and then copy this out. So let's make the verse 16 bars. Let's bring the plucks in here, and then in this part, we'll just change something subtle. We could cut the drums like this. And now we could bring the hook in. So let's bring this section back. So I think it can drop into the hook like this. The strings. Now we've got the verse for 16 bars and the hook for 8. But I mentioned a filter, so let's try one. And then one last thing, let's just grab a fill. Let's try this too. And then what we could do before the last part of the verse is just bring this filter back in. So let's copy this whole thing over, and then we'll just change something at the start of this verse. And one more thing I'm going to add is just a crash. Alright, let's have a listen from the beginning. So we got this nice filtered intro. Not chopped too much though.
J Cactus.
It drops hard. We got the plucks. These drums are sounding crazy, you know. And the lead. So those little chops just keep it interesting. Then we got the filter on everything. So it's crazy too. Whole new bass line. So I hope you like this one. If you want more boom bap, then let me know in the comments. Or if you want to watch more right now, just click up here.